36. Have you ever noticed it? That strange creeping feeling. It doesn't arrive in the middle of chaos or when you're under pressure. No, it waits. It waits for the moment you finally stop. The moment you sit down with a cup of tea and no agenda. The moment you decide to lie on the grass and simply watch the clouds drift by. The moment you close the laptop after a long week and there is nothing on the schedule for the next 3 hours. And in that quiet, in that precious, sought-after stillness, it comes. A ghost at the feast. A whisper that says, "You shouldn't be doing this. You are wasting time. There are 1,000 things you could be doing, should be doing. You are falling behind." It is the distinct, heavy cloak of guilt. The guilt of resting. It's a feeling so common, so pervasive, that we have come to accept it as a natural part of being a responsible adult. We treat it as the voice of our conscience, the spur that keeps us productive, that keeps us on the path. But what if I were to suggest to you that this guilt is not your conscience? What if I were to tell you that this feeling, this nagging, persistent sense of inadequacy that poisons your moments of peace, is not a sign of your virtue, but a symptom of a deep and profound sickness? A sickness not within you, but within the world that taught you to feel it. What if this guilt is not a signal that you are lazy, but a sign that you are beginning to awaken to a truth that the world around you is desperately trying to ignore? That feeling of wrongness you experience when you dare to be still is not because you are wrong. It is because you are a living, breathing, natural being trying to exist in a profoundly unnatural system. And your soul, your very body, is beginning to reject the programming. You see, we have been born into a grand and elaborate game, a game whose primary rule is keep moving. From our earliest days, we are taught that our value is inextricably linked to our output. As children, we are graded on our performance, on our ability to produce correct answers and complete assignments. As adults, this translates into job titles, salaries, key performance indicators, side hustles, and the relentless optimization of every waking moment. The culture we inhabit is a cult of perpetual motion. It worships at the altar of busy. Being busy is a badge of honor, a public declaration of your importance. "How are you?" someone asks, and the default, almost proud response is, "So busy, overwhelmed, swamped." We say it as if it were a sign of success, a testament to our relevance. To be not busy is to be suspect. It implies you are unimportant, undriven, perhaps even a failure. This machine, this great grinding engine of productivity, requires constant fuel. And that fuel is your time, your energy, and most importantly, your attention. It has no off switch. It does not recognize seasons. It does not understand the concept of a fallow field. It demands a harvest every single day in every single season. And to ensure its own survival, the machine has installed a very clever piece of software deep within our minds, the guilt of stillness. It is the machine's internal policeman, ensuring that even when we are away from the factory floor, away from the office, the logic of the assembly line continues to run in our heads. The guilt is the ghost of the foreman, whispering that idle hands are the devil's workshop. And so you find yourself exhausted. But it's a peculiar kind of exhaustion, isn't it? It's not just the physical weariness from a long day's work. It's a soul-deep fatigue. It is the exhaustion of playing a role you never auditioned for. The exhaustion of pretending that this frantic, endless activity is meaningful. The exhaustion of constantly overriding your own natural rhythms. Your body begs for rest. Your mind yearns for quiet. Your spirit craves space. And yet, the programming whirs to life, telling you that your own deepest needs are a form of self-indulgence, a moral failing. The pain you feel is the friction between your true nature and the artificial demands of this game. Your guilt is not evidence of your brokenness. It is the cry of your authentic self being suffocated under the weight of a false and unsustainable premise. It is the healthy, sane reaction of a human being to an insane environment. So let us look at this feeling, this flaw, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Let us hold it up to the light. What is this guilt for resting, really? It is the belief that you are a machine for doing. But you are not a machine. You are an organism. And the primary law of all organisms is not constant output, but rhythm. It is the rhythm of the tides, the ebb and the flow. It is the rhythm of the seasons, the explosion of life in spring, the slow, deep consolidation of winter. It is the rhythm of breath itself, the in-breath and the out-breath. And in every single one of these natural rhythms, the period of rest, of release, of emptiness is as vital and as productive as the period of action. Consider a piece of music. What gives a melody its power, its beauty? Is it only the notes? Of course not. It is the silence between the notes, the rests, the pauses. A composition with no silence is not music. It is a frantic, unbearable noise. The silence is what gives the notes their shape, their meaning, their emotional impact. It is in the pause that the resonance of the previous note can be felt. It is in the silence that anticipation for the next note is built. The silence is not the absence of music. It is an integral, structural part of the music. Now think of your life as this composition. The moments of action, of work, of engagement, these are the notes. The moments of rest, of quiet, of doing nothing, these are the silences. The culture we live in is trying to convince you to write a symphony with no rests. It is demanding that you become nothing but noise. And your guilt? Your guilt is the inner composer, the musician in your soul, screaming that this is not how music is made. This is not how a beautiful life is composed. That feeling of wrongness is your innate, artistic integrity rebelling against a terrible and dissonant score. Or think of a farmer and his field. A wise farmer knows that you cannot sow and harvest in an endless, unbroken cycle. There are times for planting, times for tending, times for reaping, and, most crucially, times for letting the field lie fallow. A field that is never allowed to rest becomes depleted. Its soil grows thin and barren. Its nutrients are exhausted, and soon it can produce nothing at all. To let the field rest is not an act of laziness on the farmer's part. It is an act of profound wisdom and foresight. During that fallow period, the soil is regenerating. Microbes are at work. Nutrients are being replenished. The land is healing and preparing for a future, more abundant harvest. That period of apparent inactivity is, in fact, one of the most productive phases in the entire cycle. Your mind, your spirit, your creative energy, this is your field. When you work, you are planting and harvesting. When you are constantly on, constantly consuming information, constantly producing, you are stripping the soil of its nutrients. Your feeling of guilt when you try to rest is the voice of an ignorant farmer who has been told that a fallow field is a wasted field. It is a voice that does not understand the deep, cyclical nature of life. It is a voice that, in its demand for short-term, visible productivity, will ultimately lead to total burnout and barrenness. So when you feel the pull to do nothing, to lie fallow, you are not being unproductive. You are engaging in the most essential form of long-term productivity there is. You are regenerating your soil. You are allowing the deep, unseen work of restoration to take place, so that when the time for planting comes again, you have something rich and fertile to draw from. We have been sold a terrible lie about the nature of nothing. We are taught that doing nothing is a void, an emptiness, a waste. But this is a profound misunderstanding. Nothing is not a vacuum. It is a space of pure potentiality. It is the canvas before the painting. It is the quiet mind in which a new idea can finally be heard. It is the stillness in which fragmented parts of yourself can integrate and heal. When you are busy, when your mind is full of lists and obligations and external stimuli, there is no room for anything new to arise. Your consciousness is like a crowded room with every chair taken. True creativity, deep insight, and genuine self-awareness do not shout, they whisper. And they can only be heard when the room is empty. The guilt you feel for wanting this emptiness is a form of self-betrayal, taught to you by a system that fears what might happen if you were to actually listen to your own deepest whispers. Because in that quiet, you might begin to question the game itself. You might realize that the ladder you are climbing so furiously is leaning against the wrong wall. You might discover that the prizes the world offers for your constant motion are not the things you actually want. You might find a sense of self-worth that is not dependent on your performance or your bank account. The system cannot afford for you to have these revelations. And so it keeps you busy, it keeps you moving, and it makes you feel guilty the moment you even think about stopping. Your desire to rest is not just a physical need, it is a revolutionary act. It is a quiet rebellion against the tyranny of a culture that wants you as a cog, not as a soul. So let's reframe this entirely. That feeling of guilt is not a moral compass. It is a homing beacon. It is a signal from your true self, reminding you that you have strayed from your own natural way of being. It is an invitation to come home. When you feel guilty for resting, what you are actually feeling is the dissonance between the frantic rhythm of the machine and the organic, tidal rhythm of your own soul. The inadequacy you feel is not your own. It is the inadequacy of a system that has no place for the most human of needs. The next step, then, is not to fight the guilt. To fight it is to remain in the paradigm of struggle and effort. The path is gentler. It is simply to see the guilt for what it is, to observe it without judgment. When it arises, you can look at it with a kind of detached curiosity and say, "Ah, there it is, the old programming. The ghost of the factory, the echo of the machine." You don't have to believe it. You don't have to obey it. You can simply notice it as you would notice a cloud passing in the sky. It is not you. It is a piece of cultural conditioning that you are now, consciously, choosing to outgrow. By doing this, you begin to cultivate a new kind of inner authority. You stop looking for permission to rest from a world that will never grant it. You begin to give that permission to yourself. You start to understand that resting is not something you earn after you have been productive enough. It is not a reward. It is a fundamental human right. It is a non-negotiable requirement for a sane and healthy life. You would not feel guilty for breathing. You would not feel guilty for drinking water when you are thirsty. You must learn to see rest in the same way, as a basic element of your own biology and spirituality. And as you begin to practice this, something remarkable happens. A new kind of quiet settles over you. It is not the empty silence of a wasted hour, but the full, rich silence of presence. You learn to inhabit a moment without needing to fill it, to optimize it, or to justify it. You discover the simple, profound joy of just being. And from that state of being, a new quality of doing arises. The actions you take are no longer born of frantic anxiety or a need to prove your worth. They are born of clarity, of rested energy, of genuine inspiration. You stop working from a place of deficit and start creating from a place of overflow. You become more effective, more creative, and more insightful, not by doing more, but by embracing the wisdom of doing less. Of course, this path can feel lonely. When you step off the treadmill, you will watch the rest of the world continue to run. Your choice to honor your own rhythm might be misunderstood by those who are still caught in the frantic pace. They may see your stillness as laziness, your self-care as self-indulgence. They may not understand why you are no longer willing to sacrifice your well-being on the altar of perpetual motion. Their judgment is not a reflection of you. It is a reflection of their own entrapment. Your quiet peace may even be threatening to them, for it holds up a mirror to the exhaustion and meaninglessness of their own race. But this solitude is not the solitude of alienation. It is the solitude of integrity. It is the quiet dignity of one who has chosen to live in alignment with a deeper, more natural truth. So, the next time it happens, the next time you find a moment of peace and the ghost of guilt comes to visit, do not run from it. Do not berate yourself. Simply pause, take a deep breath, acknowledge the voice, see it for the conditioned echo that it is, and then, with a quiet inner smile, you can let it go. You can choose in that moment to honor the wisdom of your own being, to trust the rhythm of the tides within you. Allow yourself the grace of the fallow field. Listen to the silence between the notes, because in that stillness, you are not wasting time. You are not falling behind. You are doing the most important work of all. You are remembering who you are.